Hello, and welcome back to the official Memphis 901 FC podcast. I'm your host, Pete Pranica, one of the television voices for the club. This week, we're going to talk with Assistant Sporting Director Caleb Patterson-Sewell. He has been exceptionally busy helping to reshape this Memphis 901 FC roster into one with more championship experience, more leadership, and talent. Now, if you've missed this year's debut episode, you can go back to the archives and listen to my visit with new Chief Operating Officer Jay Mims about his plans and aspirations for this season as he returns to his hometown of Memphis. Memphis 901 FC, by the way, fresh off a 2-1 win in a friendly with the University of Memphis last Saturday night. We'll talk to Caleb about what's looking good so far in preseason training and the friendlies, and we'll also dive into the process of identifying players that would be good fits for the club and the importance of 901 FC making a positive impact on the city of Memphis and the local soccer scene as well. Here's Caleb Patterson-Sewell. Caleb, what have you seen from the club in the preseason, the 3 matches, 2 draws against MLS sides, and then the victory over University of Memphis? What have you seen in preseason that you've really liked?
It's probably off the field, to be honest, more in the character. I think we've spoken about that a few times in the offseason. Just more how the guys are coming together, their work ethic, and I think that's a big key identifier as to what's going to happen throughout the season. Every team has highs, lows, and so on, but good characters will keep you level-headed, even-keeled. We win, it's great. When you lose, it's not terrible neither. You just need to keep even-keeled throughout the year. But more importantly, this group this year so far has shown that the work ethic is key, and they've really bought in. So that's probably the number one standout for me.
So I was going to get to this question a little later, but since you alluded to it, if you could, because you and Tim and Glassy have really worked on this roster to bring it to, I think, the best talent level this club has ever had. If you could build from scratch the ideal Memphis 901 FC footballer, what qualities would they have?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would start again off the field. So we're looking for someone with high quality character, someone that is a team player, and work ethic has to be at the forefront of everything they do. I think if you look around at players around the world, there's an abundance of talent everywhere. There's so many good players from domestic to foreign and so on. So I don't think there's a shortage of talent, but I do think there's a shortage of culture, buy-in, working for the team, check your ego at the door, check your personal goals before the team goals. So I would start there, and we have started there. That's really what we did this offseason, is to understand you cannot be halfway in here. This year we're about being 100% in. We've actually drawn it up. It's called 2024 All In. We don't want half you here, and we want all of you here, and part of that is good character, high work ethic, and being a team player. So really, without getting into the technical side, those 3 things are key. And I think if you look at the fans, you speak to the fans, they just want people that are going to roll up their sleeves in Memphis and fight and scrap. And if you can put in a good performance, at least with effort, if you don't get the result at the end, they can live with that. It's just that if we aren't showing those sort of characteristics is where it goes skew-iffy.
So when you needed to restock the roster, I'm going to put it that way, because I know there were some people that look, you're not all in, so we need to move on from you.
Right.
We understand that.
Right.
So in finding players that are going to be all in, obviously Tim Howard is a sporting director. He has media obligations with NBC. He's involved. You're involved. Stephen Glass is involved. Give me a sense of what the dynamic is like when you say, okay, we need a new central midfielder because Aaron Malloy's not here anymore.
Sure.
How does that work?
Yeah, it's just really about how soon we can identify the needs. I think that the sooner you can identify what you need, whether that be contractually, whether that be a staff decision, whether it be a club decision, it doesn't matter. As soon as you know what you're going to need, then we can sit down, and we have these drawn up already, but player profiles, what have we got here now that we ticked off? Do we want to slightly amend that? What are we looking for, and what are those characteristics both on and off the field? And then that gives us a chance to really sort of filter down the player pool, if you will. From there, once we have a clear identity of what type of player we're going to go after, myself, Glassy, Tim, we speak often, right? And at that point, a lot of it will be speaking to agents, seeing what's available, identifying those people that we think will fit budget-wise into what we're doing, and then really making sure when we're watching players, we're not watching people that are not obtainable. So it's a lot of sort of filtering and finding out ballparks and so on, and then at that point, we tried to bring the short list, if you will, to Glassy to really have a look of, okay, here's what we've got available. What are you thinking? What do you want? We all have an opinion. We all have a voice. There are no egos. There are no this way or the highway. Ultimately, our goal is to serve Stephen with players that are going to suit for what he wants and his comfortability. So, and we're happy with that. So that's kind of the process, but Tim's very much involved. He, as you mentioned, he's up in New York doing his media, and he has 100 other things that he does, but he is very well informed. His voice carries weight here at the club. He's really much a team player. I think most fans probably don't have the privilege of speaking to him on a football level, tactically and so on, other than just watching on TV, but he is an extremely bright football mind. So we're fortunate to have that at the club as well and to lean on him.
No disregard of you who played in MLS or Stephen who played in the Premiership, but does the fact that Tim Howard is part of the organization, does that help open doors in ways that they may not otherwise open?
100%. I think, I said this the other day, every club in America, from MLS to college or however low you want to go, would be extremely grateful to have Tim involved in his stature. We here, having him as sport director and part owner, we get to dive into the deep levels of his knowledge and lean on him. So, yeah, I mean, listen, there's no two ways about it. Those doors open. He's probably, if we're being honest, not just because he's involved with the club, maybe the best player we've had ever come out of this country. And if you talk about number of games and playing abroad at consistent level over a period of time, yeah, he's got to be right there at the top right. So, yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about Zach Duncan. I'm most excited to see him play. Got a chance to see him play against the University of Memphis. Now, here's somebody from Australia playing in Denmark. How in the world did you find him, and what was that conversation like to say, we think there's a role for you here in Memphis for him to make that big of a leap, at least geographically?
Yeah, no, it's we identified him early. Obviously, being half Australian, I have relationships back home and close with his agent, and he's probably the biggest agent back home in Australia as well, and has a huge talent pool. It became clear that when Zach went abroad, he was the next big thing out of Australia, and then COVID hit. He got an injury, and just an unfortunate sequence of events that just led him to not getting as many games as probably he would like or the club would like. They invested near $400,000 in training compensation for Zach, so that will give a level as to what they thought of him. But in terms of what was next, they really valued him as a person at the club. That was clear from day one when we spoke to the club there. So they kind of left the next phase of his development up to him, and where could he go to get games. And so we found our way of, can we really obtain him? What's this going to look like? And he had to do some maneuvering on his part to want to come here, and he did that, and did that without complaint, by the way. So now we end up with what we believe will be a top midfielder in this league. He's young, he's still hungry. If you see in preseason, he's just now, we spoke the other day, this is the first time in a long time he put together 4 or 5 games in a row. So we had to be careful. So what are we getting in Zach? We're getting a really high-end player, we believe, box to box. He can influence the game. He can get into our own box and help defend. He can equally arrive in the attacking end. He can shoot. He's got a good range of passing. He's got a very good engine. His numbers are through the roof. So we think we've got an all-round player. All he needs is confidence in games, and we plan on giving him that this year.
There will be a lot of transition in the sticks this year, and I know that you work closely with the goalkeepers. Give us a thumbnail on the guys that are going to be wearing that shirt. Yeah, look, it was an area that I think we went back, we evaluated in the offseason. We wanted to improve that. We wanted a little bit more leadership. We wanted a little bit more of just having the ability to have someone in there that we would say is an old head and can show us the ropes and has played a number of games in Tyler. We've done that. And then we get Taylor.
And then Taylor equally is a guy with a lot of upside, a younger goalkeeper, really good shot stopper, very good with his feet, has played games in the league. That was key for us, is how many games have these guys got. And then we have Aaron Seeger, who's more of our project goalkeeper at the club, and we've taken him out of college and trying to polish him up and give him the best chance to go on and have a career in the game. But with these three, we feel really good. I think they've all performed in preseason, and it's been a really, really nice touch for us this preseason where they're coming up with saves early, leads them to have confidence. So, that whole crew will be really important this year.
And you've had the opportunity to meet with, recruit, and bring to Memphis players that have been in winning situations with other clubs. Mm-hmm. What is it, because there are limits financially, not just for this club, but for every club, mm-hmm. the amenities that you can provide players. What is it about your pitch, for lack of a better word, that brings a guy like Nico Brett, who has had fantastic success in the championship, that he wants to come to Memphis?
I think it's the way we play. And when we speak to them, we don't go on I think and ifs and so on. We tell them how we play, and we can back that up with data. We can show them. Nico, for example, is a guy that is looking to score another 15, 20 goals. Where can I go to do that? Am I going to go to a team where they just lump balls up at me? Or are we going to go to a team that has a history? Last year, we were 1 through 4 in almost every attacking metric. How can I position myself to succeed? So that's key in being able not to waffle onto them and tell them how great it's going to be and promise them the world. We actually give them real facts about what that will look like. Then we take them a little look on the inside of our staff. Who are they? How do they operate? We have Steven, he's a high-level manager. We've got Leandro, who we brought from Corinthians in Brazil. That leads us to what we believe is probably the #1 sports performance department in the league. We're biased, of course, but on paper, we feel like we're there. We have a really good sports performance partner in the guys at Excel, and that's a multi-million-dollar facility that we use. So I think we have a lot of things where, okay, so you guys are allotting your resources in those areas as opposed to just the flashiness of a training ground and all those sorts of things. We're trying to get our resources directly into the players and squeeze out of them what we can. So I think when we do speak to the players, they appreciate the honesty. We're not telling them it's all roses, because it's not. Mm-hmm. And I think you're setting yourself up for failure if you lie to players or try to pull the wool over their eyes, and then they come in and think, this is nothing like you told me. So honesty goes a long way. But all in all, I think they come here first and foremost because of how we play. And then we get into the non-negotiables about who we are as a DNA within our squad and our city and so on. And we tell them we're not Miami today, where you live on the beach. We won't be LA tomorrow, where you're on the other beach. We're
certainly
Memphis.
Not Las Vegas.
That's right. So this is who we are, and this is how we operate. And if you come, this is required. And if you don't identify with that, that's cool. No problem. Just don't come. Yeah. And so we're clear.
I would imagine you have some phone calls with players that you hang up. Thank you for your time. You hang up the phone and go like, no, they don't work here. They won't work here.
It's happened. It happened this offseason as well. And I think that's why we try to speak to players and not just surface questions, not, this is how we're going to do it, and do you like that? Yes, I do, yeah. No, we want to get into proper conversations. Can you articulate? How do you speak? What can you tell us about your life? We want to get to know you. Where are you coming from? What's your upbringing? All these things that can help you form an opinion, not just of what we see on video, but how are they going to be character-wise? What's that? How's that going to fit with us? So I think we do that on purpose. And then we have had that this year where we said, okay, that's probably not for us. There's a few red flags there.
Mm-hmm. I've been curious, having covered the league now, this will be my 6th season. You have some guys that they want to play MLS, certainly understand that. And then there are some guys, like you look at Lou City, mm-hmm. where their roster turnover is virtually nil, although we did get Marlon Santos, right? Which is a big acquisition. How difficult is it to deal with players who are maybe of a different mindset, who are, I'm happy in the championship, I want to win silverware in the championship, and then those that, the championship is just a stepping stone to get to MLS. How difficult is it to negotiate that with different players and different personalities?
I think that's where you have an understanding of what you're trying to be. Like where as a club are you trying to go? What lane are you traveling? Is it just today we want trophies? I think everyone's going to say yes, they will. And then what's your resources to go and achieve that? And then where can you make concessions and how flexible can you be? Young players need game time. So that in itself is a currency. right? So, while we don't pay top end salaries in this league traditionally, we have provided platforms for a number of players. And so I think for us, it's to find out the balance of young and old, what you need, as you mentioned. Oscar's coming in from winning. Now he says, look, I want to play every week still. I don't really want to have people identify me as a 30-something-year-old right back, and I may not play every week. How does that work? Okay, do we need that position? Yes. Can he bring the know-how to some of the younger players? Now we start talking about Knight, who we can give minutes to, and that in itself to set him up. So I think it's like a jigsaw. You try to put it together. I don't think you can go too old. You can't go too young neither. I think everybody wants to sell players and all those sorts of things, which is lovely. The reality is that's still a department in which we are getting into in this league, and teams are having some success. And I think we've done that. Knight's our guy that we're out there with, teams have interest in. But yeah, it's a fine line between young and old, and giving minutes and putting all that into a budget category that fits.
And how valuable is it to have somebody like Oscar who can walk into the changing room without being too overbearing and saying,
right,
but I've been in this situation before.
Yeah.
I've been there when we've lifted the trophy, so this is what it takes to get there. Do you find that helpful in the changing room?
100%, and that's one of the areas we identified this offseason is how can we go and get guys who have been good leaders and have done it, have played in playoff football, understand what it's like at that time of the year. We identified him pretty early as well as to, hey, we would like to get in. We had to be a little patient, but we welcome those voices. I think maybe some places this is how we do it, this is the only way to do it, and we don't care. We're open to respectful voices and having an opinion and showing guys. You can see him now in the gym, taking young guys under his wing. Hey, let's do a little bit more before, a little bit more after. Those little 1%ers that are gonna drive a culture and ultimately across the year add up. So yeah, we're open to those players. We needed some more, as we speak about Leston all the time, but he's a true leader. How do we get more leaders around him? And in Oscar, I think we definitely have a leader that's won and knows what it takes to win.
Fan support is hugely important, and you really want to have a home pitch advantage. And obviously, we've been through COVID and,
right,
and through all that right now. And I know that one of the major emphasis for the club is getting back out into the community, not only to drive attendance at the matches,
right,
but also to be a good neighbor, if
right,
you will, and to be an influence in the community. What are some of the things that the club is undertaking to get that accomplished?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think every year we try to push that further along. Last year we did more appearances in a single season than at any point in the club history, which is something that probably we didn't publicize or tell everybody, hey, we're here today and there tomorrow. And I don't think that needs to happen all the time. As long as we know we're out there and we're doing it. We're at tournaments last year, we set up tents, we're at training nights, and we didn't just go to big travel clubs. We went to recreational, we're down in Olive Branch, we were up in Bartlett, we're out in Arlington, places where it's real grassroots community. And we need to be accessible to the kids, right? And I think once you're accessible and they can make connections, naturally you're going to inspire kids to want to watch you in action, come out to the games, see that this is fun. I want to be there one day. So this year, again, since I've been at the club, we started a community training day. And that was just a starting point. Every year that's grown. This past year, I think we had a couple hundred people out there and they all came. How do we make that bigger this year? How do we get more people there? Can we create this sort of festival event where we can have food trucks and a DJ and all these sorts of things to make it fun and ultimately be accessible? So at the heart of the community outreach will be touch points with the players. How can you get involved? How can you make a difference? This year will be no different, and we're already speaking about that with the Coach Education Day. When will that be this year? We've done that 2 years in a row, and that's been at CBU. We go into the auditorium and we open that up. We brought guys from Sporting Lisbon. In Portugal, we had Coach do it this past year about what does a work week look like? How does that go in with sports science? What are the dimensions and so on? And I think the feedback we're getting is like, wow, this is awesome. It's free. We don't put any sort of obstacles in the way of kids having access, coaches having access. So we just want that to continue to where we can provide touch points with our club. And as you mentioned, you referenced being a good neighbor, but it's really just giving back to our community and leading the way where we think there's value.
And when you have high quality players, that obviously helps because they will be able to connect with the fans. I mean, I certainly saw that at the Memphis Friendly, where you have tremendous engagement there. Last question for you. You were here before Stephen got here, and now he's in his second year. You've played for a variety of managers in different styles. What makes Stephen Glass the elite level manager that he is?
I would say his biggest strength is being straight, and people respect it. There is no personal agendas, and I think if you look at coaches across however many decades.
In any sport.
It's right. They kind of take people with them to certain places, and then, I went and followed a coach in my career as well, and I think the key is to not make emotional decisions. I like you, so I need to find a way for you. No, he doesn't do that. And I think the players respected that ultimately last year when they realized, okay, there's a line here that is the bare minimum, and this is the requirement. Doesn't matter the name on the back of your jersey. You could score 10 goals or no goals. We played a 15-year-old last year. We don't care. And I say we. He does not care what age you are.
If you can play, you can play.
You will play. If you deserve to play, you will play. And that is the crux of how you build, I think, a culture, an understanding, and complete buy-in that people feel like, if I do the job, I'm going to get a shot. And that's where you start to get buy-in from number 12 and 13 and 14 and 15 and so on. Hey, if I just work this week, I still have a shot, right? So that's his biggest strength for me. We can get into tactics and how he reads the game very well and all those sorts of things. I think he probably crosses the ball better than anybody on our roster until today. So that for me is not the strength really. It's about how can you be straight with the players, black and white, and have them buy into knowing this is my standard and you need to get there to play. So far, they've done that, and it took a little while last year, but after we got going, it was a completely different environment.
Because I remember, and I can't remember this precise match, but I'm thinking like, this is time for a substitution. But the run of play was going so well, it's like, no, why change it? There's no need to change it. And I think that's one of his greatest strengths. Like, look, this is working. I'm not going to overthink this and mess this up.
He does it often. We sit on the bench while the game goes on. He says, who's going to change the game for the better, right? So if we're taking somebody off, we're taking them off to put somebody on, and what do they add? Do we need a goal? Are they going to give us a higher chance to score a goal? If the answer is no, then we're probably not doing it. Do we need to hang on here? What do we take off in order to make that happen? So there's been times where there hasn't really been great value for him, so he says no. And I think that's, again, happy to stand on his convictions, and people respect that. And I think that's a real big trait for a manager, is that you can be in the run of a game or in training and keep not be emotional. You're level-headed, and that will take him far.
Caleb, thank you so much for the time. Looking forward to March 9th.
Thanks, Pete.
So the team has one more preseason friendly. That'll be Saturday, March 2nd against St. Louis City 2 in St. Louis. That'll be the final tune-up before the Beale Street Boys take on Las Vegas Lights on Saturday, March 9th. 3 o'clock kickoff at AutoZone Park. So get your tickets. Single game, mini packs, and season tickets are available at Memphis90nfc.com. Check out the new enhancements to the season ticket experience that include an exclusive scarf, special team events, a ticket exchange program, concession credits, and much more. Coming on the pod next week, a sit-down with manager Stephen Glass as he breaks down the new arrivals to the club and discusses the identity and work ethic of 901 FC. Our thanks to Caleb Patterson-Sewell for joining us on today's edition of the official Memphis 901 FC podcast. I'm Pete Pranica. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you on the pitch.